Thank you for joining. It's Ray with Tarot Living. So today we're actually going to take a look at tarot lesson number 4 in our series of 8 tarot lessons that we are working on from now until the end of 2015. So today's lesson is going to be about numbers. So we are going to be touching upon the meaning of numbers and the patterns that you can find within a reading with regard to numbers. So I hope you find this tarot lesson helpful. The number 1 in tarot, which are the aces, represent the beginning of a cycle, a starting point, conception, new project, or adventure. It can relate to the origin or seed of pure potential in the suit. As well, aces relate to initiation, inspiration, and aspiration. It is about opportunity for new growth and relates to the magician in the major arcana. Okay, so let's talk about the aces in relation to the magician. Someone had asked me for more information on relating it back to the major arcana. So we'll take a look at as many as we can here from 1 to 10. So the magician is the number 1, and you will notice in most of the magician cards, and this one included, that he actually has all of, essentially, the elements, or all of the aces, so to speak. That's how I like to think about it. So right on his table, he has a sword, a pentacle, a cup, and he has a wand. So typically the card will show that the magician has all of the elements and all of the energies that are required in order to manifest. And I think it's really quite symbolic if you think about the aces sitting in his, I don't want to say possession, but that he has access to the energy of what the aces represent. So the aces, remember, are the pure potential of that particular energy, of that particular element. So he has access to that. And the magician is known to really be a creator, someone who can manifest. And he's just at the beginning stages of recognizing he has the tools, he has the skills, he has the talents in order to manifest. So it can also represent that you have the will and the ability to make something happen. He's typically got one hand up in the air as if pointing to the heavens, and he's got one hand more toward earth, and that's to represent as above, so below, and it's to represent that he is a manifester. So he can take the energy of the aces, remember their pure potential, and it's really that pure potential and energy that he is able to channel, and he's able to manifest things in his life. So whether you're looking at the Ace of Wands or the Ace of Swords or whatever ace it is, if you pull the magician in relation to the aces, then it's going to be a pattern. So you can definitely take a look for patterns in your readings of numbers. I would also suggest that if you pull the wheel or wheel of fortune, which is a 10, that would also be considered a connection to this pattern, because as soon as you get to the 10, you're really at the very end and you're going to roll over almost, very, very soon into a new phase, which would of course start over at the ace again. So in terms of the pip cards and the numbers from 1 to 10. So just to keep in mind that if you also get the wheel card, which is a 10, it can really have a relationship to the cycle of beginning and ending. So I hope that helps in terms of connecting the 1 to the major arcana magician card. The number 2s in tarot relate to the unity of the number 1, splitting into 2, creating duality and polarity. 2 suggests partnership or relating. It requires reconciling of opposites, a drive to find balance, and deal with conflict or tension. It suggests choices, decision-making, crossroads, or planning. And it relates to the High Priestess in the major arcana. Okay, so let's take a look at the 2s in tarot and the High Priestess, which holds the number 2 in the major arcana. So the High Priestess is really all about a level of duality. You can see that she's got 2 pillars on each side. In this case, it's actually 2 stone sort of structures. The Rider-Waite deck has 2 pillars, with one with a B on it and one with a J. So she really represents a lot about duality, the conscious and unconscious, dark and light, spirit and matter sort of coming together. So, and she's also really very much speaking about that unconscious or even superconscious kind of realm, the realm that relates to water. Moon, she's ruled by the moon, and she sits in the house of Cancer. And so it very much relates to the feminine aspects of life, intuition. It really speaks to the idea that you should maybe go into a period of silence or stillness to figure out where you need to go next. It's almost like if decisions need to be made, maybe you need to wait a short period of time and perhaps do some inner or introspection or some contemplation and meditation on it, or maybe some information will be revealed. She's kind of the holder of the secrets in many ways, and she's very feminine and very intuitive. So if we look at the twos in the tarot deck, oftentimes you see twos not only representing some level of duality, but trying to sort of attain a level of balance, or needing to perhaps make a decision, or in a period of contemplation. So this particular card that I've added here, which is the Two of Swords, really relates to her, because Two of Swords astrologically is actually ruled by the moon as well. So these two cards have great similarity to them. So the Two of Swords is really a card where you are in a place that you have not yet made a decision. You are mentally at a standstill, really, and at a point where you're contemplating things. And you perhaps need to go within. Usually the person has a blindfold on, suggesting that perhaps you need to block out some of the external senses and go within in terms of an internal, introspective way. And so she really sort of, the Two of Swords to me very much reminds me of the High Priestess quite a bit. There's usually a moon somewhere in the picture. This one I don't think has a moon, but often it does because it is ruled by the moon. So if you see a moon in the Two of Swords, that's why. So these two cards have a great deal in common, and it's really about saying that you need to perhaps go within, trust one's intuition in order to make decisions, in order to recognize what you need to do and what steps you need to take next, and what is right for you. So it's really speaking to that element of life. Two of Wands is an interesting card. This actually, this interpretation of it is a little bit different, but the Two of Wands is usually the person in the Rider-Waite deck who has two wands, and he's usually got a globe in his hand. And the Two of Wands is actually Mars in Aries, and so it's got a lot of dynamic energy of being able to move forward. But the only thing is, because it's a two, typically we recognize that this individual is pausing for a moment in order to determine what would be the best next steps. Where should I go next? Which direction should I go? And he's usually holding a globe, and he's in some level of contemplation perhaps about where we want to go next. So you can see that the twos in tarot can really relate back to the High Priestess, and that maybe we need to take a period of time to figure out what would be the best next step for us. Sometimes quieting the mind and having non-action might be the appropriate step right at any certain moment. So you can see that with the Two of Wands and the Two of Swords a little bit more. So I hope this has helped in terms of understanding twos and how they relate to the High Priestess. The number threes in tarot represent manifestation, creativity, growth, development, and expansion. It can represent group activities, networking, or friendships. Threes suggest a creative project is at the first stage of completion, and more development is yet to come. It relates to the Empress in the Major Arcana. Okay, so let's look at some threes. So here we have the Empress, which is the number 3 in the Major Arcana, and I've put the card that relates to it the most in terms of threes, in my opinion. So that's the Three of Pentacles. They are both earth signs, so Three of Empress is ruled by Taurus, and Three of Pentacles is ruled by Capricorn, which is also an earth sign. So the 3 in tarot, we've just gone through some of the meanings, but for the Empress, her meaning is all about fertility and creativity and really nurturing something. So oftentimes it sort of relates to a project that you might have on the go, something that you're working on artistically, perhaps some kind of growth, or that you're sort of even just growth in terms of your own self, or even growth of like a child, nurturing a child. She's kind of like the universal mother or the great mother. So it's about fertility and pregnancy and really just the abundance of creation and procreation. So she's very warm and she's very embracing and she's highly creative. There's nothing more creative than, creating a child, obviously. So the 3 of Pentacles, really, if you get this in a reading together, which I have had many times before for people, it's really a huge connection. And it really means that there's something creative happening, some kind of project, some kind of work that you're doing that is highly creative at this time. Not only that, but that you can really manifest it very well at this point. So if this person had a project on the go, or if they're wondering how it's going to go, this means it's going to go well, and that the manifestation of that project and even the monetary results of that project are going to be very positive. Now here's something a little bit different, 3 of Cups. Now remember, the Empress, she is all about this feminine energy, and she is really the nurturer, and she's the person who can bring people together. And 3s often talk about networking or having other people involved, so there's maybe a group. So 3 of Cups really speaks to that, where it's a connection of people and it's a communication with people. And there's kind of a heart connection, because 3 of Cups sits in the house of Cancer. So there's a real heart connection and sort of just a real fulfillment of networking with others. So you can see that connection as well. 3 of Wands is another great example of where creativity or projects can be on the go, or something that you've been working on has come to a point of at least first level of completion. 3s are known to be the first level of completion. So, this would say whatever project you've been working on, it's gotten to a certain stage and you've done well with it. There's yet more to come, though. There's more growth that's going to be happening. Because 3s are dynamic. They reach a certain point, but they are going to create growth coming up. So I think there's just some connections with the 3s for sure. So if you do get the 3 with the Empress in the deck, then definitely watch for that and recognize that it can really mean about creativity, networking, connection, abundance, that sort of thing. So I hope that helps you understand 3s. Number 4s in tarot represent stability, reliability, security, solid foundation, structure, order, and can be stagnation. It can relate to practical application and formation. Imagine number 4 as a container holding the essence of the energy in each suit. The container creates structure, but has some limitations and confinement. 4s relate to the Emperor in the Major Arcana. Okay, so let's look at 4s with the Major Arcana and the Emperor, which is the number 4 in the tarot deck, and I've picked the 4 of Wands. And the reason I picked that is because it's the one that relates most closely or most solidly to the Emperor. And that's because they both sit in Aries, in the sign of Aries. So if you're looking at the Emperor, we really know that 4s, we've just talked about what 4s mean and that they're very solid and foundational. So the Emperor really talks about being that authority figure or that father figure. And there's a level of power and authority and sometimes even kind of, rigid rules that can come from that. But a lot of leadership and a lot of structure. And, if you've picked a 4 with the Emperor, then you know that you're dealing with leadership, structure, power, authority, solid foundation, order, form, something along those lines. So the 4 of Wands is a great example. They both sit in the house of Aries. And 4 of Wands is really all about creating that foundational home environment, or that you've come to a certain point in terms of your own self discovery and your own projects and your own success, that you're actually able to set down roots and build a home, for example, create a foundation, get married. It can mean a very foundational relationship, something that's very solid and very structured, something that can be quite stable over a long period of time. I think if the word that comes to mind is stability, if I were to see these two cards together. So let's do something totally different and talk about the Four of Cups. Okay, so remember that fours are going to create a lot of structure, solidity, foundation. Fours can also create some level of stagnation, though, as well, and limits. Remember that a four is a box. It's got four sides, and it has its limitations to it as much as it's very stable. So Four of Cups is an example of a card where the individual is not easily able to move outside of the current feelings, the current perceptions, whatever it is that you're doing at this moment, whatever it is that you're feeling, how you're perceiving things is going to stay fairly stagnant at this time, and that you need to really think about how you need to move yourself outside of that. So fours can be, very grounding, but they can also be quite stagnating at times depending on which card comes up. So if you've got two fours that come up in a reading, just take a look at which ones have come up. And this one in particular can mean that things do not flow in and out as easily, and that there's sort of a stagnation that can happen. Four of Pentacles, those two cards together would be extremely strong and would show an incredible amount of foundation. But I would probably say that they would also show that this individual is really working within a certain amount of structure that could even be limiting, that could be rigid. So if I had these two cards come up, I would say, wow, there's potentially some rigidity here, and needing to really sort of protect what one has in order to not go outside of conventions, I guess you could say. So that's what I would say about those two cards. So I hope that helps in terms of understanding fours.
Number 5s represent upset of the stability in the number 4 due to chaos, conflict, imbalance, struggle, strife, uncertainty, and difficulties. It can suggest a pivotal point, creating opportunity for change and growth as a result of the trials, challenges, separation, or loss that may be experienced. The number 5 relates to the Hierophant in the Major Arcana.
Okay, so let's talk about fives and the Hierophant. So Hierophant is the number 5 in the Major Arcana, and fives do relate to him. Initially, it seems almost challenging to connect the fives with the Hierophant, because actually the Hierophant is all about, this his authority in terms of a spiritual realm, about conformity, convention, being conservative, traditional views, sort of the holder of the doctrines and the dogmas and the teacher to other people. So he's kind of like a religious leader. And, very much into spiritual laws and teaching. So I guess fives are really considered to be a number that where we learn spiritually from fives, and where spirit really meets matter. And so when we come down into the earth plane, pardon me, there's a lot of challenges that we face in order to spiritually grow. So that's kind of one connection that you can think about. I look at the fives of the Minor Arcana, and I almost feel like those are the points where that control has been let go, and I think ego is challenged, and we need to learn and we need to grow spiritually. So we have all these challenges coming to us, and it's kind of the point of imbalance in order to stretch yourself and spiritually grow. So the fives, here's one. I've just picked the Five of Pentacles, for example. And the reason I picked that is because I think that they really, kind of connect to each other, because they're both ruled by Taurus. So the Five of Pentacles, you remember we talked about the Four of Pentacles just in the last one, where the Four of Pentacles, he's got sort of financial backing. He's got abundance, but he's holding on to it very, very tightly. So fives is an example where we have reached that point where it's a tipping point and things become out of balance. So 5 says, oh, remember when you were hanging on to all of your stuff so hard and you were overly controlling about it and you were overly focused on materialism? Yes, well, now we're going to learn about not having material things. And so it's about lessons and it's about learning as we walk through the 5s. So the 5 of Pentacles is really about saying that you're having difficulty with your financial resources and your material resources. You're being challenged in some way in that sense. So there's one of the 5s, for example. If we look at some of the other ones, we've got 5 of Wands where we are struggling. There's power struggle and there's not control over everybody. And so we have sparring and we have differing opinions and we have challenges and strife that may happen. 5 of Cups is where we've lost something and we don't feel like we have control anymore over everything going on around us because something has been lost and we don't know how to gain that control back. So it's about letting go and walking through that grief in order to be able to let go and then regain one sense of kind of emotional control again, or emotional balance, shall I say. So those are just some examples of 5s, and relating to the Hierophant, I kind of see him as being that point where everything is under control. And if you reverse the Hierophant, everything starts slipping, where people are not wanting to conform and individuality is rising up and you're being rebellious, for example, that kind of thing. So I hope that helps in some way for a connection between the Hierophant and 5s.